If you live in the South, you're probably used to dealing with excessive temperatures in the summertime. But lately, it's been next level. And whether you have experienced it before or this oppressive heat is new to you, let's talk about staying healthy when it's too hot to handle.
Healthy isn't just what you do, it's who you become. I'm Dr. Vicki, and this is Healthy Looks Great on You, a lifestyle medicine podcast to help you reclaim your energy, your focus, and your well-being. Life tested, doctor approved.
We've seen extreme heat advisories in places that are normally quite pleasant. And truthfully, when I see the high temps in some regions of the country, I've thought, yeah, that's normal for us. But the truth is, what's normal makes a difference. Those of us who are used to living in places where kids fry eggs on the sidewalk for fun can adapt to some degree, but these degrees in some areas are breaking records with high temps that are 20 to 30 degrees above normal. And it's hotter than I ever remember here. Although, in the summer of 1972, Burt Reynolds filmed a movie in my hometown. I landed a small part in the movie, but it later got cut. My short acting career ended before I turned 10. That particular summer, it was 106 degrees Fahrenheit. And when they interviewed Burt Reynolds and asked him what he thought about the South, he said, "It's like working in an oven." He's not wrong. And the United States isn't the only part of the world currently frying. Europe and Asia are busting the mercury out of the top of the thermometer too. And it's been deadly. It's hot out there. We aren't going to meteorology school, but you're probably familiar with the term heat dome. And if not, you've probably felt the effects. This high pressure air traps heat and prevents clouds from forming. Kind of like those infrared lights over French fries. It keeps things hot. And it can be worse for your health than fast food. Well, maybe, depending on how well you take care of yourself. So today, we're going to learn how to do exactly that. When it's so hot, you should probably stay in the air conditioning if possible. But when you have a job to do, listen up. Now, if you haven't watched VeggieTales and seen the episode about Josh and the Big Wall, this might not make sense. But the animated version of the Walls of Jericho features French peas as guards of the walls. It's VeggieTales, okay? They're all vegetables, so stay with me. And besides, French peas are definitely healthier than French fries. My favorite line in the movie, and me and my kids still often repeat it even though they're grown, is the taunt from the peas that says, "Perhaps out in the hot, hot sun, perhaps you've dehydrated?" Forgive my French accent, but dehydration in the blazing sun is no joke. It's one of the biggest risks of excessive heat. So now let's go to mini medical school and talk about it. If you're out in the heat, you need to be drinking water. A lot of water. Ideally, cold water. Because drinking cold water chills you from the inside out. So add plenty of ice to your water because it's going to melt quickly. And take a sip at least every 15 to 20 minutes. But don't overdo it with plain water because if you chug more than 48 ounces of water in an hour, you can actually dilute your body's salts. Our bodies live in such delicate balance. If water had a warning label like medications do, it might say, may cause abdominal bloating, increased urinary frequency, and if used improperly, electrolyte imbalances and even death. So you should get about 24 to 32 ounces of water in an hour, but less if you're just chilling by the pool. 16 ounces an hour should be adequate for lounge lizards. You know, I'm not a fan of tracking and measuring. That's more exhausting than mowing the yard in July. Your body is designed to tell you what to do. And your brain will just start shouting, "I'm thirsty," if you get behind on dehydration. But don't you just wish there was a gauge like the one in your car that lets you know when the tank is getting really low? You have 25 minutes until empty. Actually, you don't need that either. Just look in the toilet after you urinate. If your urine is dark yellow, that means it's concentrated and you need more fluids immediately. And if it's really dark, that's like the big E light blinking on your dashboard, and you better find a place to fill up now because your tank is dangerously low. When your fluids are nicely balanced, your urine will be the color of pale lemonade. Lemonade is a good color to keep in mind for assessing hydration, but it's not the ideal fluid to drink for hydration. Sugar-sweetened beverages actually slow down the hydration process in your body. Better to drink water or sugar-free electrolyte-enhanced drinks. Or one of the best hydration drinks is coconut water. This contains natural sugar, which is better, plus it contains potassium and sodium, which happens to correlate nicely with what you're losing when you sweat. Sweating buckets is your body's way of trying to keep you cool. But like the electricity running your air conditioner, there's a price to pay. Last week we talked about electrolyte replacement solutions, when you need them and when you don't. And here's the deal, when you're sweating a lot, that's when you need them. But avoid energy drinks. Some of them pack a big caffeine punch, and the last thing you want is for your heart to be working overtime in the already straining heat. Plus, guess what else they usually contain? Sugar. Not only are you getting caffeine and needless calories, as I've said before, sugar's not the best hydrator. So drink something else. No, not alcohol. It certainly isn't calorie-free, and it's notorious for dehydrating you, even in the snow and frigid temps. Remember winter when we had to wear a coat and a hat to go outside, and now we're stripping layers to try to breathe? Turns out that what you wear affects your body's ability to cool off. Tight clothes can trap heat, so wear loose-fitting clothes that allow your skin to breathe. This week, I went to the store in a black truck, and when we got back in from shopping, the dashboard thermometer read 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, it wasn't actually that hot outside, it was close, but a black truck on black asphalt made the thermometer read 120. That's because dark colors will heat you up more than light colors. So now is not the time to dress like Johnny Cash. And I love wearing hats, and a wide-brimmed hat is a great accessory in the heat. But I've noticed that I cannot wear my black golf hat on summer days because heating up my head cranks up my overall personal heat index. On occasion, I've been known to put an ice-cold wet towel on my head under my hat. It cools me off, but probably doesn't make me look very cool. But I'd rather be goofy than fashionable, and it immediately works. No matter what your color palette says you should wear, leave the dark clothes in the closet during a heat wave. Heat exhaustion and heat stroke are never in style. Now, many of you are probably thinking, I think I'll just stay at home in the air conditioning when it's this hot, which is great if you have that luxury. When I was young and money was super tight, we couldn't afford to run the air conditioner at full blast all summer long. So I spent a lot of time at the library, which was fine because I was trying to get into med school and it was a nice, quiet place to study. So take advantage of public places like cooling centers, museums, and libraries, and also natural spaces because trees are your friends. Not only do they provide shade, but they also don't absorb that heat and radiate it back at you like the pavement does. And where there are trees, there is water moving around in the air, and water cools. But since this is mini medical school and not dendrology, I want to give you the warning signs of overheating and basic steps to take if it happens to you. First is heavy sweating. Geez, it's been hot enough this week that you can sweat heavily just going to the mailbox. Next come dizziness and nausea. Extreme heat zaps your energy, but when you start to feel cold or turn pale or your skin gets clammy, that's a big red flag that you're overheating. Muscle cramps and headaches are your body's way of urging you to get cooled off. If you experience these symptoms, then go inside or at least get in the shade and drink some cool water. And take off as much clothing as possible without being indecent. Use a fan or wet towels or a combination of both. Better yet, cool off in cool water. You can try a swimming pool, but they can get warm as bath water in the summer. So a creek or a river will be more refreshing. Or head inside for a cold shower. Heat exhaustion can be accompanied by a fast, weak pulse. And hot temperatures can make you really cranky, but can also make you sick. When heat exhaustion progresses to heat stroke, it can be deadly. It's important to manage symptoms early and be on high alert, especially for athletes practicing outside in the summer. And I'd also like to caution you about your pets because they're vulnerable to excessive heat too. And we've all seen those tragic stories where kids get left in vehicles. As with many things, the young and the old are more vulnerable. So if you have an elderly neighbor who lives alone, please check in on them daily because isolated elderly people are one of the highest risk groups for heat-related death. And with heat stroke, that irritability can progress to confusion and slurred speech and even kind of strange and bizarre behavior. And skin becomes hot and red instead of clammy and pale. And when you stop sweating, that's a major warning because that's your body's way of cooling off. And your core temperature can rise above 104 degrees Fahrenheit. Your pulse can get rapid and bounding, and that can be accompanied by fainting and seizure and even unconsciousness. And listen, this may be really obvious, but I'm going to say it anyway since people are still sharing that cough CPR post on social media that is completely untrue. The right answer, whether you're having a heart attack or a heat stroke, is call 911. And I also want to mention certain medications that can affect your body's ability to regulate temperature or stay hydrated. Like antidepressants. Dry mouth is a common side effect as it is with antihistamines. And of course, diuretics and even beta blockers can make you more prone to dehydration. So keep that in mind. When you're out in the heat and it feels like you're living in a furnace, those UV rays can also burn your skin. So don't forget your sunscreen. And bonus, it helps prevent wrinkles too. When I was in medical school, we used a lot of mnemonics and silly associations to help us retain enormous amounts of information. So here's one to help you remember what to do in extreme heat. Sip, strip, dip, and chill. You know, kind of like stop, drop, and roll if you're on fire, but this one's when you're baking in the heat. Sip, cool water often. Strip, keep it PG, but wear light-colored clothing that are loose-fitting. Dip, jump into water or take a cold shower. Or if you're not afraid of looking ridiculous, wear a wet rag on your head like George Washington's wig. And chill. Get in the shade, go into the air conditioning, and be cool. Sip, strip, dip, and chill. And if you experience or witness signs of heat stroke, be safe and call 911. In this extreme heat, it's important to be informed and take precautions. Stay cool and stay healthy because healthy looks great on you.
The information contained in this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not considered to be a substitute for medical advice. You should continue to follow up with your physician or healthcare provider and take medication as prescribed. Though the information in this podcast is evidence-based, new research may develop and recommendations may change.